don't want to. You don't gotta do it if you don't want to. You don't gotta do it if you don't want to. It's just a suggestion. Come on.
Again, we're here again. Cheers.
It's almost becoming a habit.
Episode 3.
The third and final episode dealing directly with midlife crisis.
You know what? This is going to get complicated to introduce the episode when we get into the thousands. If it's 1,457, it might be a little wordy, a little bit much.
By then, we'll be so poppin' that we'll just have somebody doing it for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all for joining us again. This is episode 3 of the ConverSAYtion. I'm Psych. Joining me today is K, and we're going to be delving into solutions, hopefully, solutions for the midlife crisis that we have. I hope we haven't created it to be or made it any bigger than it already is in this exploration.
The word crisis is in the name.
Yeah, it is.
We can't make it worse than that.
No. So last time we talked a little bit about where the term was coined, who brought it up. We got into a little bit of your research, which went over some of the symptoms, I think.
Yeah. And your TikToks.
I think your contributions were a little bit better than mine.
No, I think they both have relevant value. Just one required reading.
Yes, and one required 30 seconds of time. All right, well, hopefully we can wrap up this whole thing today with solutions. If you're listening to this, hopefully your crisis is not as... hopefully you're not having one, and hopefully you can find your way out of it, and hopefully we can provide some value and some help, and not only to those that have... Hopefully you're not going through crisis, but if you are, and if you find yourself in one, those people we definitely want to help and provide some value to, and quite possibly those that are encroaching upon that age where they're about to enter.
I think we'll say some things today that might allow people to kind of see inside themselves a little bit. It's like I know that I recognized some things when I was doing the research on symptoms and recognizing some of those things.
Oh, you were self-diagnosing.
Dr. Google and I had a moment.
It's pretty easy to do.
Yes.
It's all right here.
Yes.
But then also some potential solutions, or at least some information to provide to those that are maybe innocent bystanders, so to speak.
Yeah.
People adjacent to those.
Yeah. Because it's not just about seeing the problems in yourself or seeing the symptoms in yourself. If you have loved ones that are going through changes, and you want to be a part of their solution, you can see that you might be noticing the symptoms yourself and in others. Yeah.
Which can be incredibly helpful. Hopefully you have a relationship established with those around you where you can come to them with that information. You can come to them with those concerns, and they can hopefully be accepting of your perspective.
And there are definitely clinically accepted ways of doing that, and there are wrong ways of doing that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's more wrong ways than there are right ways.
Yes, we all will do it wrong. And no, none of this is medical advice, by the way. Just wanted to get that out there.
We should also put a disclaimer out there that we're a couple of men just sitting here talking about
dudes,
our lives,
and
the direction that our conversations will go are probably going to lean a little bit more male-centric. Not right or wrong, just kind of what it is.
I know more about what it is to be a man than what it is to be a woman.
Cheers to that.
Yeah. So, while we're on the subject of solutions for midlife crisis, and what we're really talking about is depression.
But you can cure depression with prescriptions, and some people self-medicate.
Yes. So
what are we having?
Nice segue. So we have been drinking this bottle. We talked about it in the first episode. It's Mitcher's Small Batch Bourbon. We're not being sponsored by this or anything like that. We're trying different things.
But we're not against it.
No, we're not against it. No. we're trying different things to see what sticks. One of the things that we're doing is we have been sharing this bottle during the first 3 episodes. I think we've got 1 episode left in this bottle. And I wanted to spend a moment talking about Mitchers because it's kind of fun. It's an American Kentucky bourbon. It's the distillery has been around since 1753. It's had several different names over that time. The Mitchers name came about after Prohibition in the 50s when one of the distillers bought it, renamed it, named it after his. He combined his son's name, Michael and Peter. So that's how you get Mitchers. So it's been around for a very long time. It has the distinction, this is their big thing, of being named 2023's most admired whiskey in the world. So congratulations. Very funny. I was on their website. In fact, I'm on their website right now, reading through their about stuff, their history, their legacy. Very interesting stuff. It's mitchers.com/legacy. And they have this whole section about the rebranding during and after Prohibition, and it's called Midlife Crises of the 20th Century, from Prohibition to Bankruptcy. So even our liquor choices inadvertently meet with the theme. Congratulations to us on doing that. But let's just jump in. Let's jump in. So one of the things that I think we need to discuss is recognizing the symptoms of midlife crisis turning into severe depression. Because you can have, and we've talked about this, crisis is the wrong word. A lot of the psychologists want you to use midlife transition, which I'm also not a fan of, because saying midlife transition makes it sound like my midlife is just me trying to get from early to late life. Not a big fan of that, the term. But for want of a better term, we are moving to midlife transition, right? But when you're in an actual crisis and you're starting to get into depression, there are some things that you can look for in yourself. And I'm going back to the article by Kathleen Doney that I talked about last episode. And she says that midlife, people need to be aware of symptoms of serious depression, such as changes in eating habits, sleeping habits, feelings of pessimism or hopelessness, restlessness, anxiety, or irritability. And I read another study that talked specifically about uncontrolled bouts with anger, like short bursts of anger. And I have a story, and I'll talk.
Like fits of rage that
Yes.
just come out and maybe would be considered exaggerated. It's not the wrong, but just an overreaction.
I'll give a personal example, and then we'll discuss
Okay.
it. But so feelings of guilt, helplessness, or worthlessness. I think that's depression in a nutshell. Loss of interest in activities you once enjoyed, and this includes things like sex and hobbies and all that kind of stuff. And then thoughts of suicide. And one of the things that was on the list that I thought was really interesting, physical aches or pains, such as headaches or gastrointestinal upset that don't respond to treatment.
Oh.
So physical manifestations of pain, like that you can't fix with OTC medication.
So it's all internal. It's all psychological.
Apparently. But so these are the things that you can look for in yourself and others. And in reading this, I had an aha moment. So I was medicated for depression 12 years ago, 14 years ago, in my early-ish 30s, mid-30s, early 30s. And the doctor put me on Celexa. I was on it for about a year. One of the reasons why I originally approached my doctor to seek help was the random fits of rage. I would feel normal. I'd feel fine. I was a little bit down, and I had that feeling of like helplessness, the worthlessness, and I always just attributed it to the grocery industry, because when you're in management in groceries, and I was in grocery management for 15 years. They they kind of instilled this belief in you that you cannot succeed, that you're just constantly failing, and they do that to try and get you to work harder, work harder, work harder. So I just kind of thought that that's what it was.
So they just push hard to try to motivate.
And they don't ever tell you, hey, great job. Or they never told me. But it's the anger that really triggered my response to going to the doctor. I would get mad about literally nothing. I would fly off the handle at work. I would snap at employees. I remember very, very distinctly, it's just burned into my memory, trying to make eggs and not getting the flip right on a fried egg. Like it didn't come out perfect. And I got so mad that I slammed the spatula down and broke it in half over the stove. After reading this, I see that I made the right decision to go see my doctor. And he put me on some pills, and I also and after a year I was off of them. And so I do want to talk about the treatability and what they say about that. But these are things that you're looking for in yourself and others. And it's not, I mean, these are some of these things, the word change is really, really big, I think. It's because people have trouble sleeping. That might just be who you are. You know, you might be an anxious person. You know, you might have chronic, suicidal thoughts and tendencies. That those are not necessarily midlife depression. It's the changes that these things are new. That's what we're looking for, according to what I've been reading.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I think anytime a person's behavior changes, one should take note of it. Not just the person who is having the changes in behavior should note their own change in behavior, if at all possible, but the people around them. As someone who works in education and has so for a great many years, and my primary job is to notice when my students change, the changes that they're going through, their changes in their tone of voice, changes in their behavior, changes in their attitude, changes in their mood, changes in their actions. All of that I need to use to inform my practice so that I can give them the best education possible. Yeah, I think anytime a person is experiencing changes, well, yeah, one should know. Many times people can, I mean, we live in this culture that is saturated in data collection, right? I don't have my watch on now, but my watch will track everything, my heart rate, and how many times I was standing, and how many steps I took, and so on and so forth.
I've stood for at least 1 minute for 9 hours today.
Yeah, we record. I mean, we're recording right now. We're recording just about it all, and on TikTok, definitely. Now that we've delved into TikTok,
now that we're TikTokers,
people are recording themselves,
doing everything.
At all times, doing everything. And I think that can be, if it's used wisely and if it's used efficiently and effectively, it could be a good thing. Because I don't know that a lot of people journal or write down things day to day, their thoughts, their feelings, their notions, and they keep like a log of their life going. But TikTok and other
a lot of people are video chronologic.
They are
chronicling their lives.
Yes. They're over time. If they go back through the catalog that they have collected, yes, I think they might see some change. Not just in how they were feeling or how they were thinking, but also you can see physically. And I'm sure this is episode 3. We're not going to look the same way we are right now during episode 100. And
I plan on maintaining a lot of my current level of attractiveness.
The length in hair too.
It won't.
I'm not cutting mine.
No, it curls up at this point, so it's never getting longer. It just gets bouncier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But changes in activity, changes in fitness, changes in you mentioned changes in appetite, changes in one's patience either shrinking or maybe somebody just becomes indifferent to all aspects and everything around them. That could be it too. If you found that someone was engaging much more, and then they just weren't, and they became passive, and they fell off the map. They made it every single decision, and then they didn't want to be a part of any decision. Yeah, all of those changes. We do the scale. You get on the scale in the morning to figure out how much you weigh. Is your scale accurate or not? I don't know. But is the scale moving one way or the other? That's what you want to pay attention to, not necessarily.
Yes. So I think that the takeaway is changes are not necessarily bad inherently. However, if we're noticing changes, we should be evaluating those changes.
Yes.
For signs of, some things that can end up being negative, like depression, like anxiety.
Especially anything involving your health. My wife just lost a coworker about a month and a half, 2 months ago. Young man, early 30s, mid 30s at the most, and he was having headaches, and he was going to the doctor. Doctors couldn't figure it out. He's having these headaches. Why can't the doctors figure out what's wrong with me? And I don't know if he just wasn't effectively advocating for himself, which is possible, or if his doctors were just incompetent or too busy or just weren't running the right test or what have you. But they did an autopsy after his death because he wasn't supposed to die. He was too young to die. Why did he die? They did the autopsy and they found a tumor right there in the back of his spinal column, right there on his brain, and which was the cause of his death. It was just too much pressure. It was blocking things. It was interfering, and all of that could have been solved or could have been found with just an X-ray. But for whatever reason, that change didn't get noticed. So it didn't get noticed in time, at least. So the earlier the better. Whenever there's a change, the earlier the better. So we've noticed the change in ourselves or a loved one. You're acting outrageous. Stop it.
Well, yeah. And calm down is not the correct answer for this.
What's wrong with you? Does that work?
No. So based on the research that I've read, and there's a lot of...
But I heard that growing up. What's wrong with you? Did you hear that? Your parents?
Of course.
Okay, so it's not just me.
You need to stop acting up right now.
There we go.
Yes. But no, that's for a 9-year-old. It's we're talking about a 45-year-old right now.
Okay.
So we've noticed some changes. They're not good. They're not eating the same. They're drinking more than they used to. When you have conversations with them, everything's inherently negative. That's happening. So what happens next? So if you notice these changes in yourself and you don't like what you're seeing, like I did, you go to the doctor. The doctor put me on pills, and it totally smoothed me out and gave me the opportunity to work on my perspectives. I probably would have been more successful if I had also done behavioral therapy. Talk therapy is what they call it. Talking to a psychologist or a counselor. I probably would have been more successful. In fact, the research seems to indicate that medication or therapy in of themselves can be effective, and I'm apparently living proof of that. But together, they are almost always effective.
Yes, so in my line of work, I have many of my parents are contemplating medicating their student, their son or daughter, and I am of the school of thought that you never choose medication if you haven't already attempted a treatment plan first. Put together a plan in place at school, at home, implement it, be consistent with it, make sure there's changes in the structure, changes in the routines, changes in the habits that occur first. And if that's insufficient and more help is needed, then medication could also be explored. And yes, when both are done in unison, Simultaneously, it almost always works. But medication, nobody wants to be on a medication long term. Nobody wants their liver and kidneys and stomach and all of that having to,
or just a long-term alteration of the perception of reality.
Yes, their feelings or mood when they come off of it some can mess up hormones and this and that. Yes, you definitely.
I can tell you when I came off of Celexa, it was about 4 solid weeks of nightmare.
Well, a lot of people, I mean, even with the most basic or, the pretty much all medication, more or less, and we're not doctors. This is not medical advice and should never be treated as such. But all medications should be weaned. You should wean yourself off of it.
Yeah, and I did not do that.
And almost, as far as the physicians that I've encountered, medications, it's like, okay, when you get to this point, then just stop. And take it this long, and then you don't have to take it anymore. And if it's something that is affecting the human body in a significant way,
yeah, it's like anything, alcohol, ibuprofen. Everything that you consume affects your body, and it changes the chemical balance. Yes, so yes, not a great idea. But talking about medication versus behavioral therapy. I've got Anita Clayton, who's a medical doctor, professor of psychiatry and a neurobehavioral science at the University of Virginia, and she says that so there was a study published in the Journal of Consulting and Clinical Psychology at Stanford University, and they did a study of 656 people with chronic depression, and they found that
how many people again?
656.
Okay.
And they found that the combination of talk therapy and medication produced faster, fuller remissions of chronic depression than either done separately. And they go on to talk about like a 90% success rate. So the takeaway is that the midlife crisis-based depression is entirely treatable. It's not something that if you go down this dark rabbit hole and start to feel like you're never going to be better, I mean, depression does that. It creates that feeling.
What percentage of people going through midlife crisis would say that they are in a midlife crisis also say that they are struggling with depression?
I think it's a pretty...
Is it the majority?
So I don't see anything to indicate that, because these research things talk about this becoming this. So I don't really have data or perspective on the transition from midlife crisis, which is a buzz term from the 60s.
Yes, and it's something that's not even diagnosable.
No, it's not.
If it were, then we might have...
But the depression is the diagnosable thing. And that's where I think that, because midlife crisis or midlife transition is not a problem until it exasperates into a problem, and depression is the problem. Mm-hmm. And so that's where these people are talking about. So the symptoms are there. We notice the symptoms, but we go get help, or we don't. And depression is nasty that way. It's one of those things where you don't think anyone can help you. You think you're alone. You're an island. You're stuck. You're failing. You're miserable. So, how do you approach somebody like that?
Well, I found Monica on TikTok.
Oh,
I think she has all the answers.
Let's listen to Monica. I'm pretty sure she's probably the go-all, catch-all for the winner of Midlife Crisis Solutions.
So, what to do if your spouse is having a midlife crisis?
According to Monica.
According to Monica, yes.
So here's what you do if you're dealing with a midlife crisis. First, you have to recognize it's very difficult to do anything about. Saving somebody who's drowning means that you might drown as well. They really do need professional help. But if they don't get it, and even if they do, actually, you still need to be as non-reactive as possible. Don't panic. Hold steady. Hold onto your love. Hang tight. But don't do it in a pleading way. Don't beg. Don't ask the same questions. Don't keep pushing for clarity. They don't know the answers. You have to remember, they don't know the answers. Know that it's it's normal and is an opportunity for growth, not only for them, but for you, if you can stay centered and confident in spite of what's going on for them. Remember that even if they want a separation, it isn't necessarily...
And she gets into divorce and goes on.
Yes, yeah. She gets into the separation. We're not really going to
get into specifics of the branches of midlife crisis.
Yes,
But
yes.
Non-reactive, I think, is the biggest part of approaching somebody.
Be there, be available.
Be available. So when I was reading about, I read, so my reading, I heard the same thing. Non-reactive, availability. They talked about being somebody like a sounding board, like being available. If somebody just wants to vent, you don't have to have a perspective. You don't have to have an opinion. All you have to do is be there.
You don't even have to have a solution.
Yeah, no, you don't have. No, the win is showing that person that somebody is available.
Just show up.
Just show up. Be a part of it. I think that's a huge win, and it's something that we don't see and we don't do. I mean, so often we think of somebody else's depression or their problem as how it's affecting us, and we step into somebody's depression with a negative attitude, like, why the hell are you so down? Because you're affecting my mood now. I'm making it about me, when if I really want to help you, I don't need to make it about anything. I just need to be there.
And that's one of the reasons why so many people who are struggling with depression continue to put themselves out there on that island, because when they come around or come in contact with people who are like, well, why are you bringing down the party? If you didn't feel well, then why are you coming out? If you weren't in a good mood, then why are you here? And really what they were just searching for was some support and some compassion, and they still wanted to participate in life, but are clumsily trying to awkwardly find their way through it, and to be met with somebody who is disinterested or is more selfish. I think selfish is a better word.
Yeah, selfish.
They're not going to be motivated or reinforced at all to seek the guidance, or at least the company of other people to share their thoughts and feelings.
Yeah. I think that I may have gotten lucky, because I have a very loving, very caring wife. And when I was going through depression, I think, honestly, she did not know how to react. She didn't have the answers, but she was there. And she's the kind of person, she's always been like this, which is great. She's always been the person who's just let me go. If I want to rant and rave, and she's never offered too many perspectives on those kinds of things. You know, she doesn't have any perspective on grocery management or the stressors involved in that, but she was always willing to just let me rant and rave and just go until I was done. So without knowing that was going to be helpful, she was doing exactly what these psychologists are saying you should do.
Sounds like you picked a good wife.
W's all around. Yes. Award-winning marriage, as far as that perspective goes. Yes. So take your ego out of it, I think, is the takeaway. Take your ego out of it and just be available. You don't have to have an answer, like you said. You don't have to have a perspective. You just have to have the time.
So I was perusing around, and I'd like to compare and contrast what I found on Kaiser's website,
which has the image of a red sports car. It's so good.
It does. I think that that's the new Corvette. I think. Yeah.
You can tell from the wheel well.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think.
We'll put that up. We'll put that up while we're talking.
I'm sure everyone's welcome to correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. All right, what is a midlife crisis? We've already gotten into that. Symptoms we talked about. All right, so some of the symptoms we mentioned, we'll compare to what's here. Engaging in risky activities, and it lists off a whole bunch of them.
So I was one of the first band I was ever in. One of the guys I was in the band with, after he left the band, And a couple of years go by, and suddenly he's skydiving, like all the time. So, midlife crisis?
I have a friend who he doesn't skydive anymore, but he used to skydive a lot. In fact, he skydived so much he has probably a handful of friends that killed themselves while skydiving. In skydive, he has skydived enough to have a half dozen friends that he used to skydive with that did not pull off their jumps.
So definitely risky behavior.
Yes. Feeling isolated, with withdrawing from previously enjoyed activities, anxiety, boredom, regret, feeling of nostalgia, such as grieving the past and dreading new upcoming challenges.
I think that's a big one, the nostalgia thing.
The good old days.
Because I see I encounter a lot of people who always only want to talk about high school, glory days, when they were younger. I mean, yeah, I do like my stories about being in bands and stuff, but it doesn't drive me. But I do remember a time when I did spend a lot of time talking about just how things were.
When your best days were behind you, so to speak?
Yeah. It's
or at least the best stories you had at the time were the ones in your past.
Yeah, then distant past.
Not hey, I'm doing this. This is upcoming on the calendar, or I'm training for this and going to do this, and then you have the new story. I think that would be more problematic if you see the same people year in and year out about the same time, and they tell the same stories. I'm sure we've all been there where they only come to the table with the same
with that
stories
same story.
At the dinner parties, at the cocktail party, whatever social gathering it may be.
It's Al Bundy's 4 touchdowns in a single game.
We've heard that story. I could tell your story.
Yeah.
Feeling unfulfilled, being indecisive, lacking motivation, neglecting self-care.
So I know somebody right now who meets all the benchmarks of clinical depression. Not that we're trying to help him outside of our podcast.
Okay.
But
clinical depression or midlife crisis.
Well, yeah, I think that this
a lot of these are blended together.
Yeah.
So the very next question in the next paragraph is a midlife crisis the same as depression? And sometimes.
Yes.
That's what it says.
That's why they call it a practice.
Sometimes.
Doctoring is the most non-committal concept because if we're wrong or if you die, we're just practicing.
Mm-hmm.
But to bring it all the way home, I think that the thing is you got to get help. It's highly treatable.
Yes.
Depression is not a lifelong thing.
No, it doesn't have to be.
No, you can move past it. All you need is a little bit of help. But the isolation is a big thing because how are you going to convince me that I can get help if I feel so isolated? And that's where it goes back to just being available.
You have to have a relationship and a rapport. You have to be in close proximity with that person. You have to have frequent and regular interactions with them. You have to have a certain level of trust built up. There's so many things that have to occur before that person is going to reach out, and you want them to reach out.
Yeah, but you can build that rapport simply by starting with availability. Mm-hmm. Being that person that they can just blindly vent their frustrations to. That they don't. You're not judgmental. You are just there because people really want someone just to talk to.
Yes, you have to be relatable. You have to. You might not have to have walked the same path that they have and gone down their road in their shoes, but at the very least, maybe there's something that you have experienced in your life that is similar.
Yeah.
Something that is closely related to, something that's connected or adjacent to what they are experiencing, and you can use that experience to springboard and bridge that gap into what they're going through.
I think that's a great point. Is that yes, maybe you don't know what they're going through. Maybe they say right to your face, you don't know what I'm going through. You don't have any idea what I'm going through. However,
You're right.
You're right. But I'm willing to listen, not judge, not offer advice because I don't know what you're going through, but I'm willing to listen. And that right there, I think, is the biggest double door you can open.
And if you'd rather not share with me, well, then I hope you share with somebody else. I hope you find somebody else.
Yes, yes.
So how do you cope? How do you cope according to Kaiser? And Kaiser knows everything.
Well, they know about preventative medicine, but how do they offer solutions? I'm curious.
They've got the cure to the world's problems here in this article.
With the red sports car.
Yes, September 28th of 2022.
Okay.
And it goes on. Acknowledge and validate feelings and emotions. Reframe and reflect. Take stock of your accomplishments. Focus on what you can control. Take care of yourself. They should probably put that up at if they had to number these things, maybe put that at the top. Get involved and active. Seek support. And seek support. The final one they leave you with is seek support. And there was another article I read on another. Oh, it was Healthline. The final piece of advice to get through this was seek professional help. So I suppose what they're getting at is, if all else fails, if you've done all of these things, if you have exhausted this list, then seek support.
I think that if you have the opportunity, not everybody has medical insurance. Not everybody has the opportunity to seek professional help. But if you do have the opportunity, if that's available to you, I think you should always consult a professional. If you perceive a problem, ask somebody who knows more about it than you do. Just go ahead and try it. They may say, "Hey, bro, calm down. You're fine."
Just make sure that person knows more about it than you do.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Go to a doctor.
Yeah. You can go. I mean, there's quite possibly. I know I have people in my life, and you probably have people in your life that are the same, where they're not professionals in a field that you might be interested in talking about per se, but they know way more about it than you do at that particular point in time. And there's value in seeking them out first to see, just to see, okay, if I talk with them, can they help me? Can I get my problem solved? Can I fix this? I would say the vast majority of people probably have somebody in their life somewhere, or at least someone that they have encountered that would be willing to take on that role and is competent enough to at least get someone to the place where they're not experiencing such intense symptoms. They could probably get ahead of some of this, and they could probably have an easier go, especially when it comes to depression and anxiety.
Yeah. So seek help, ask questions, allow people to help you. Just try it. Just try it. You're isolated. You feel like there's no solution. What do you got to lose? What do you got to lose? Giving people the opportunity to try and help you. Because the worst case, you're back where you started, and you're depressed and isolated.
I think as a man, speaking as a man, and I would say quite possibly more of a traditional man, one of the barriers is that vulnerability. Oh, I don't.
Yeah, that's a big thing too.
I'm expected to know.
Yeah.
I have to handle this. I fix everyone else's problems. Why can't I fix my own?
Well, so then maybe that's another hurdle. Being okay with not knowing. Yeah. So be okay with not knowing. Whatever it takes, convince yourself that you don't need all the answers, because yes, you were raised to be the man, but here we are. Reality sets in.
Yeah.
And I think with that, I think we've solved the midlife crisis. Congratulations, Psych.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Kay.
Thank you. So we will select another topic for
so many different directions
so many directions. We'll figure it out. I think I'll take credit for selecting midlife crisis. We'll make Psych pick the next one. And yeah. first 3 episodes down, you talked about 1,000, so
Yeah.
we can always go.
102,000.
Yeah. All right, bro. Well,
That's it.
that's it. And please, see you next time.